Welcome to the Unknown Chronicles, where the veil between reality and the mysterious is razor thin. Together we'll journey into the darkest recesses of the human experience, where truth twists into terror and shadows whisper secrets. Prepare yourself to face the unexplained, the unsettling, and the unspeakable. The unknown is waiting. Let's step into the darkness. Today, we have our next story coming from Jack of Utah, read by your host, Thorn Bloodrose. This story is called The Night at Baker's House. I don't know why I'm doing this, writing my story to some random YouTube podcast I found late at night when I couldn't sleep. But my story is the same as everyone else's. Stories about things they can't explain. I don't usually listen to stuff like this. I've had enough of my own unexplained and strange happenings to worry about. But lately, I've been feeling watched. More than usual, and if something happens to me, I want someone to know I was only trying to get him back. Because Andy's my best friend, or was my best friend. And I might never know what happened to him. But Andy's still out there. And Andy's still not Andy. It all started in the fall of 1974 at Baker's house. If you've ever been to Snow College, you know the place, an old crumbling Victorian mansion at the edge of campus. It's the kind of house that feels alive with its groaning floorboards and drafty hallways. A place where every shadow feels just a little bit too dark. But back then, it was where all the best parties happened. If you weren't at Baker's house on Friday night, you weren't anywhere. That night the music was so loud it felt like the walls were shaking. Zeppelin, I think. Or maybe the Stones. I can't remember. All I remember is standing at the stairs, clutching a lukewarm beer and watching Andy. He was in the center of the room as always. Andy was the kind of guy everyone wanted to be around. Charming, funny, magnetic. But for the past few months, something about him was wrong. It wasn't obvious at first, just little things. Like the way he moved. Too smooth, like he was gliding instead of walking. The way he laughed, sharp and hollow, like he didn't really get the jokes. And his eyes, they used to light up when he was laughing or telling a story, but now they were flat, cold and hungry. If I wasn't Andy's best friend, I don't think I would have noticed myself. I kept telling myself I was imagining it. That it was just the stress of preparing for finals or the ongoing war or the continued civil upheaval. I don't know, but the longer I watched him, the more certain I became. Whatever was standing in the middle of the room now, it wasn't Andy. I hadn't even realized I was staring until he looked up and caught my eye. My heart stopped. Andy smiled. No, smirked, and raised his beer towards me. It was a friendly gesture, but the look on his face sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't a smile I recognized. It was the kind of smile a predator gives a prey right before it strikes. I needed to get out of there. Without thinking, I turned and headed up the stairs. I didn't have a plan. I just needed space, air, anything to get away from that gaze. I was halfway up the stairs when I felt a hand clamp on my shoulder. "Where are you going, Jack?" His voice was too close, too warm. Slowly, I turned to see Andy standing there, smiling that same eerie smile. His grip on my shoulder was firm, almost painfully so. His fingers felt like claws digging into my skin. "Just needed a break," I said, trying to sound casual. but my voice came out shaky. Andy tilted his head, studying me like I was something he couldn't quite figure out. "You've been avoiding me," he said. His tone was light, but there was something in his eyes that made my stomach twist. No, man, just busy, finals and all." His smile widened, showing too many teeth. "Busy. Right." He leaned in close, so close I can feel his breath on my ear. "You know, don't you?" I pulled back instinctively. "Know what?" Andy's eyes narrowed, and for a moment the mask slipped. His face twisted into something other. The smile, the warmth, all of it vanished, replaced by a look of pure malice. His eyes shifted, not noticeably if you weren't staring as hard as I was. Like the mask of Andy's face had slipped just a bit, showing a small piece of the thing underneath. "You're not as good as hiding as you think you are," he whispered. "But that's okay. I like this game. Let's see how long you can keep pretending." I felt frozen in place, unable to speak or move. Before I could process what was happening, Andy's expression shifted back into its usual friendly facade. He clamped me on the shoulder hard enough to make me stumble and strolled back down the stairs, leaving me standing there, shaking. I stayed upstairs for the rest of the night, holed up in a dark, empty room. The sound of the party below felt distant, like they were coming from another world. I couldn't stop replaying Andy's words in my head. "You know, don't you?" What the hell was I supposed to know? That he wasn't Andy? That something else had taken his place? The party had wound down, but I didn't wait for the house to get quiet before I slipped out. I just didn't trust what would happen if I was alone with him. Even as I walked through the busy streets, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being followed. That night was nearly 50 years ago. I've spent most of my life trying to figure out what he meant, learning everything I could about shapeshifters, doppelgängers, parasites, any supernatural thing that would explain what happened to Andy and how to get him back. But now Andy started showing up again. Not in person. On TV, in magazines, on the cover of business journals, Andy had become a household name, a powerful, influential figure. And every time I saw him, that same unease crept up my spine. Because he hadn't aged, not a day. Last night I was at a gala, one of those fancy events my wife insists we attend. The room was packed with people in designer suits and evening gowns. I sipped on a drink, trying to stay invisible, when I saw him. Andy. He was standing across the room, charming a group of people with that same smile. His suit was immaculate, his hair perfect, but those eyes. Our eyes met, and I froze again like that night. Andy's smile broadened in that too wide, too much teeth smile, and he raised his glass towards me, just like he did all those years ago. I turned away, my heart pounding, my hands shook as I set my drink down. Before I could move, I felt a presence behind me. "You still pretend so well, Jack." His voice was low, almost a purr, and it sent a shiver down my spine. "What are you talking about?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. Andy stepped closer, so close I could feel his breath on the back of my neck. "Oh, come on. Don't insult me." I forced a laugh. "Great seeing you, Andy. Let's catch up soon, yeah?" He leaned in, his voice dropped into a whisper. "No one else knows, Jack. It's still just you and me. Isn't that fun?" I swallowed hard and turned to meet his gaze, forcing myself to smile. "Still don't know what you're talking about, Andy." Andy smiled. Seeming satisfied, he stepped back. See you around, Jack. He disappeared into the crowd, but I could still feel his eyes on me. So here I am, writing this. If you're listening, watch those around you. He can't be the only one. He can't be. I'm not crazy, and I'm not wrong. Whatever took Andy's place is still out there, and it knows I'll never stop trying to bring him back. Whoa. Jack's story is deeply unsettling. Whether you believe in possessions or something far darker, there's no denying the weight of his words. Jack, if you're listening, be careful. You're not the only one who's been searching for answers, but sometimes the search itself might draw unwanted attention. But here's a helping hand. I'd visit a certain antique shop, but only on the coldest, darkest night of the year. Wander the streets, lost in thoughts you'd never dare voice out loud. And at the corner of your eye, you'll spot a shop that wasn't there before. Step inside and tell the man behind the counter that Thorn sent you. He might have more answers than you can handle, but answers nonetheless. And to all of you, my listeners, Jack's story is a chilling reminder. If you ever had a friend who changed overnight, who looked the same but felt wrong in ways you couldn't explain, trust your instincts. Don't let the shadows creep closer than you're willing to handle. Thank you for tuning in tonight. This has been Thorn Bloodrose guiding you through another tale of the Unknown Chronicles. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your wits sharp as we continue our journey into the depths of the unknown. Remember, the shadows are closer than you think. Good nightmares, and sleep tight. If you can.